Welcome everybody to the AP podcast. Today we got special guest Matt Maiwald in the house. Matt is actually my former coach. We've actually been in contact for a while now. And today we want to do a little bit about pre-workout, intra-workout, and post-workout nutrition. So you guys know exactly what you need to be burning fat, building muscle, or whatever your fitness goals are. So thanks for being on the podcast today, Matt.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm going to have Matt give a little background information, kind of his specifics of training from his past, his credentials, stuff like that. So go ahead, yeah.
Jay, so I got into weightlifting when I was pretty young for sports, and about 12 years old, and been doing that for about over 20 years now. I've done prep coaching. I've helped Austin prep coach for the last 3 or 4 years now. Done about 15, 16 shows myself personally for bodybuilding and men's physique. And just so live this lifestyle and this passion I have for bodybuilding. We're going to go over basically pre-intra, post-workout nutrition today. Maybe a little specifics about different body types and different times of the year and what your goals are, whether you're trying to add tissue or you're cutting down for a show. A lot of these things are going to depend on what you're doing, what you're eating, what you're taking for your goals and to be most efficient at what you're trying to accomplish.
Makes sense. Okay. Just making sure everybody on live, can everybody hear us? I want to make sure the mics are good. Thank you. What's up, Michelle? What's up, Shaggy? Ronald? We good? Is the microphone good? You can all hear us? Awesome. We'll just keep it going. Just speak up and go from there. So what do you think about pre-workout nutrition? What do you think the specifics are people should be focusing on when setting themselves up, like time frame wise, different macros, stuff like that?
Well, generally most people should eat about 60 to 90 minutes before, I've noticed, before they train. That could be solid food meals, generally protein. I have protein, not to say powder, but from meat source or some type of source in that period, based on what your macros are. So basically when I'm creating someone's whole plans for their pre-intra, post-workout plan, I have their whole plan set out for the day. So that's all going to be taken into account. So a lot of folks, I'll have them take in a complex carbohydrate, a clean source of protein. It could be something as simple as old-fashioned Quaker oats mixed with a whey protein isolate, something that's easy to assimilate. The closer you are to your eating time, to your training, the more easy to assimilate nutrients and meals I'm going to try to use. It could be different. Like you could be a construction worker and you need to eat 2 hours prior to your training. I might use more of definitely a solid food, chicken and sweet potatoes or say something like that. And then the macro levels are all going to be dependent on the person, as far as the carbohydrates they're taking in, the protein they're taking in, if they are taking in fats, what time of the year it is, their body type is going to dictate that. So there's a lot of variables. I mean, if you give me some specifics, we can kind of go get more, because really it's all gray, a big gray area.
Yeah, so I guess, let me ask you this. We'll start with ectomorphic people, okay? We'll start with a skinnier build person. It's a winter right now. People are trying to gain weight, more bulking season. If you have more of an ecto, how would you structure his pre-workout nutrition if, with his fats, with the carb sources, and then maybe the timing before his training?
Yeah, so basically you're going to take into consideration all the macronutrients that they need, their calorie needs. And then generally in the pre-workout, intra-workout, and post-workout period, I'm going to keep those fats as low as possible. Depending on the person's body type, there could be some fat macros in there in that time period. Direct source, generally they're kind of be like indirect source fats that come from the meat, like the chicken breast or whatever, to the oats, things like that. For an ectomorph, we probably would add some fats, especially in the off season. MCT oil or coconut oil would be preferred, or grass-fed butter, because they're medium chain and short chain triglycerides. So those are going to be more used for an energy source in that time period. I like those. And then depending on how far out we are from the time you take in that meal to your training session, would depend on the carb might differentiate and change. If we're further out, more of a whole food type carbohydrate, sweet potato.
Are you talking you would put more fiber in there in a sense?
Yeah, something that takes a little bit longer to actually process too, because we're trying to keep them satiated, obviously, but not staying stuffed during your workout so you can train properly. and getting enough calories to promote an anabolic environment, so a muscle building environment. So I mean, if that person's eating like that 2 hours to 90 minutes out, I'm gonna go with whole foods, and I like for ectomorphs, I like red meat. It doesn't have to be excessively fatty, but using something like a 93.7 ground beef and sweet potatoes and some vegetables. If they were having to eat that meal, say 45 minutes, 30 minutes out, and they weren't able to assimilate that meal quick enough to actually train hard, then we do something like whey protein isolate, and add that to some oats or cream of rice, and possibly maybe even fruit, depending on how long of a time period they went without eating. There's a lot of different tools that you can utilize, and I use food as a tool. Some people believe, if it fits your macros, and that does work to a certain extent, I think. But
Skittles and candy all the time.
Well, yeah, but I mean those are tools too. But you can utilize different tools for the different folks. There's not people that say I'm gonna eat clean or I eat dirty, whatever. I kind of say there's processed and there's unprocessed foods. And the processed foods generally are going to assimilate quicker, absorb quicker. There's less, it's a difference between eating rice, like jasmine rice, versus cream of rice. The cream of rice is already powder. It's already broken down. There's nothing mechanically more to break down. So it's going to assimilate into the bloodstream quicker, and showing like something like, say, let's take a carbohydrate, a special carbohydrate like carbolin, which is very big at the molecular level compared to like dextrose. And carbolin is not a simple sugar, but dextrose is. So most people would think, that simple sugar is going to absorb faster than that carbolin, which is a complex carbohydrate. Well, actually, the complex carbohydrate of the carbolin absorbs faster than dextrose because it's molecular heavier, and it goes into the bloodstream faster. And what insulin is responding to, insulin.
Yeah, no, I want to get into that. Insulin, yeah.
And generally in the pre-workout, intra-workout, workout time period, we're trying to harness insulin as our most anabolic hormone, and that's the only time really I'm really trying to usually use that hormone.
And that's what I was going to ask you.
And sensitize the body to that hormone then.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you is what is your strategy with insulin pre-workout? Because I've heard of some people having a huge insulin spike and they go actually hypoglycemic, and then also some people, depending on the body type,
that would be the insulin spike and then they ran out, so the blood sugars cleared out, so it went hypo. So if you had a constant influx of carbs, you could, that's what carbolin's doing already.
Yeah.
So if you take carbolin, you have the insulin because it absorbs so fast, even though it's not a simple sugar. At the molecular level, I kind of compare it to like analogies for is you take like if you're floating in Lake Coeur d'Alene and you're an amino acid, and a speedboat goes by, that's dextrose. That's how small it is. It's not big enough to pull you into its wake and pull you into through the gut lining with it. But if aircraft carrier went by, it's big enough, it would pull you into its wake, and that's where the highly branched cyclic dextrins and the carbolin are at the molecular level are much bigger carbohydrates, and they push everything into the bloodstream faster, which makes the body secrete insulin to deal with the raised blood sugars. If you go hypo, basically it means you burn through all your blood sugars. So if you have to have a continuous supply of blood sugars, so you could use a mixture of types of carbohydrates, your simple or
spike. All the carbs you need.
Yeah, I think taking in a tremendous amount of carb helping if you're after hypertrophy and muscle building and bodybuilding, creating a pump, creating that hyperemia. In Milos Sarchev, the bodybuilding coach who was professional bodybuilder throughout the 90s, did 72 shows. He kind of he's like basically the godfather of like pre-intra-post workout nutrition. Most people don't know that, but that he's trying to utilize that insulin spike to push as much carbohydrates, as much amino acids, creatines, and other nutrients into the muscle to create a very anabolic environment to build more muscle in that time period. And take advantage of that insulin spike then and there, and that's way. And insulin is like this double-edged sword in America. Most common people, are having insulin spikes all the time and become insulin resistant, and insulin resistance is type 2 diabetes.
At least type 2.
And that's from your dietary intake, taking in insulin all the time, taking in sugars all the time and raising your insulin to where your cells become resistant. It's kind of like they don't want to take up the carbohydrates, but the fat tissue does, and that's where people can get fat. So insulin can be the most powerful muscle building hormone, or it also make you very fat, depending on how you
utilize it.
Yeah, and we're talking about endogenous hormone of production of insulin. here. There are people that obviously take exogenous hormone insulin too. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure the protocol for nutrition is a little different with exogenous stuff.
Just make sure there's enough carbohydrates.
Well, okay, so kind of went through an ectomorphic. We're going to keep fats as low as we possibly can with indirect.
Not necessarily with
indirect fats.
Not necessarily ectomorphic. Not necessarily fats as low as you can with ectomorphic. It just depends on like my overall breakdown of when I create a plan, because I'll do that for someone's plan. How much fats they have in the day, and where I need their fats to be at, where I want them to be at, and then I'm going to nutrient time those.
Gotcha. And you shoot those short chains if you have your fats higher, like over your whole course of the day, you're going to keep those short chains pre-workout if you need to put them there.
Well, I could put them anywhere I want, but I might use them out a certain amount at that time period because maybe they were burning through their carbohydrates a little faster, so we had a little fats into there.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Just depending. But yeah, like carbohydrates. Basically, we're trying to push a lot of carbohydrates in the ectomorph.
Yeah.
You know.
So let's switch to like an endomorph, more of a heavy set person. Maybe can't utilize carbohydrates as much. What would you do differently with their protocol?
Well, generally they're going to have less carbohydrates intake. Their protocol, depending, that's again, like we're talking like that pre, intra, and post workout, but we're looking at the big picture. That whole thing, all the day is taken into account. So I mean, someone that's endomorphic, heavy set, they have a low. Say we're going to utilize fat more so for the energy source and carbohydrates. We're just going to use pre and post workout. So with like them, I generally a lot of times I won't even use intra workout carbohydrates, and the carbohydrates I do use are going to be more like oats, sweet potatoes, higher fibrous type of carbohydrates, not processed carbohydrates, more satiating as well. And we want those carbohydrates there too, because when we're training hard, you're getting into the higher heart rate, and you're going to need those carbohydrates, and you're feeling them right there, and we're taking advantage of that. Also, a little bit of the insulin spike, but we don't. Generally, the endomorph is not worried so much about building muscle, but about not accruing too much fat tissue. And so, like with them, we just want to make sure that we're not putting in too much to where you're getting fat tissue, and you're putting in enough to fuel their workout properly, so they're able to push and make progress and gains. And all these are all very gray area as far as we haven't even thrown in numbers as far as amount of carbohydrates and things like that, and that's all something that somebody's going to have to play with. And if they wanted more information, you can contact one of us and kind of give you that ballpark, where to shoot from. But to give you like a honest answer, you have to just know more about the person and that individuals, more about that individual.
Yeah, lifestyle, all that stuff. So.
Yeah, how much their age, their lean body mass, their metabolism type, how hard they train. There's a lot of different variables.
All right. Well, yeah. So that's kind of general guidelines for pre-workout nutrition. We're going to transition into intra, which should mean during your workout. What do you think are kind of the basic guidelines for intra-workout nutrition? I know there's a lot more that's in media these days about these intra-workout powders and stuff like that. I'm not really sure about back maybe 20 years ago. Maybe they were prevalent, but maybe people didn't know about them as much. Can you go maybe a little more of what you would structure, what's out there now for intra-workout nutrition?
Yeah, and so we're just going to go from like a hypertrophy standpoint, so like trying to build muscle, depending on the person's macros they need and their body type, carb powder, and I generally use the carbolin or recommend highly branched dextrins because those are much bigger at the molecular level, and they're going to pull all the other nutrients into the bloodstream with them at a faster rate, give you a sustained release of energy, and spike that insulin at a higher rate than you would get with dextrose, because the carb actually absorbs quicker into the bloodstream. And so insulin is responding to blood sugars raising.
So it spikes it higher, or it spikes it and keeps it over a longer period of time?
It makes it higher and longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And basically, I like branching amino acids or essential amino acids in that time period, free form. Creatines are great. People are using arginine back in the day. Was what they used for vasodilator. Now, actine sulfate and citrulline are kind of the kings in that field, which I think are great and help with the pump. There's a plethora of things you can throw in there as far as supplements and things like that. But generally, the free-form amino acids, either the branched amino acids or the essential amino acids, depending on the person, anywhere, could be from 5 grams total to 25, 20, 25
What
grams.
is your take on that now? I know there's literature and stuff coming out about amino acid metabolism, stuff like that, of branched chain amino acids versus essential amino acids. Now they're saying that you need to be anabolic to have all the amino acids rather than just be anti-catabolic. What is your opinion on that?
The proof's in the pudding. Like, I don't know, people have been taking BCAAs for years and they've been working.
Yeah.
Like, all these studies like try to counteract this, or tell you this one is wrong or this is right and everything else. And then there's the guys that have done like, the real world results. You eat more protein, you get bigger. It's like the whole thing. Oh, you can only eat 30 grams of protein every 3 hours, and that's all you absorb, and that's as big as you're gonna get. So if I'm up for 6 meals a day and I eat my 180 grams of protein for 6 meals times 30, that's as big as I'm gonna get. Well, the guys that eat, I'll tell you something, the guys eat 300, 400, 500 grams of protein and lift weights consistently on, day in, day out, and progress, they keep getting bigger as they increase their protein and as the weight gets heavier on the bar.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic. It's like we try to overcomplicate things and, have this new study and that study and everything. BCAAs work. Essential amino acids work. Whey protein isolate works. Steak works. Chicken works. It's like we're not reinventing the wheel. And if more people would actually just put in hard work and elbow grease rather than researching stuff, like actually people just don't work out hard enough anymore.
You're relying
on the whole. Yeah, they wanted the research. Back in the day, there wasn't research. People just worked out hard and they got great results. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Now, you have people that are educated and you go to and they can take the guesswork out for you, but nobody's gonna do the work for you. And that's kind of like the thing where it's like all these studies and you got these kids coming in and they're like, I read this study, and I'm like, well, you haven't even lifted weights for a year. Put your dues in, put the real practical application in. Yeah, but as far as that goes, bigger guys, 20 grams of BCAAs in an initial workout or essential amino acids, either or, I don't care. Just get them in.
Yeah, just do a quick rundown of what branched chain amino acids are.
The 3 amino acids that make up the branched chain amino acids are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. They're free-form amino acids. Leucine is shown to stimulate the mTOR pathway, which increases the amount of protein we synthesize, absorb. So they've been shown, and I've seen through myself and hundreds of people, increase your recovery rate. Your strength endurance is better during the training session, seems to be, when you take in branched chain amino acids as well. But you need to be taking in a sufficient amount. Generally, a lot of people will take in capsules, they'll take a couple grams, BCAAs. It's really not doing enough.
Literature says 3 to 5 grams, but in reality.
Yeah, it's 3 to 5 grams of pretty much leucine is kind of what I've noticed. Is make sure you're getting the isoleucine and the valine, but those are kind of just playing those sidekick roles. Yeah, seems to be. But yeah, if you want essential amino acids, those are great too to take in that time period. Generally, finding an essential amino acid drink that tastes not like death is almost impossible. Yeah. So good luck to you.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there's branched chain amino acid for intra would help with recovery, stuff like that. The carb powders, carbolin, cyclic dextrin, like you said, with the insulin responses and maybe gastric emptying, stuff like that. Let's see what else. We kind of went into some vasodilators. Let's go into a little bit about agglutine sulfate, citrulline,
old school,
arginine, stuff
yeah.
like that. What is the benefits of dilating, vasodilating, I guess?
Well, it's kind of bro science, but the benefit, obviously you're getting more oxygen and more blood flow to the muscle, which should help you recover. It gives more nutrients to the muscle and stuff like that. But also the shape of the muscle and the bro science behind the hypertrophy to the muscle and the stretching out the fascial tissue. If you're in the bodybuilding world and you've been in the bodybuilding world for a while, you'll know a lot of guys, and their weight actually won't change a lot over the years. It kind of stay in the same ballpark, but their physique will start to get more 3D and pop more, and their muscles will appear bigger, and the fascia stretching out. And so that seems to be from hypertrophy style training or bodybuilding training of creating that pump and stretching out that fascial tissue. These products you're gonna notice and feel that difference of that pump that they create, and over time, it seems to be that does add to the overall appearance of the physique.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I basically weighed the same 2 years ago.
Did you say you weighed around 220?
Well, my competition weight was basically the same as it was 2 years ago, but my physique is a fuller, more developed physique than it was. And so if you look at just paper, you're not gonna notice a difference. But yeah, with those arginine, the agrotine sulfate, the citrulline, the nitric oxide promoting products, and arginine was more of like a vasodilator, and that's kind of like it got touted as this nitric oxide promoter. It more just relaxes the blood vessels and allows them to expand.
Okay.
But yeah, I think those products, and they're fun. It feels good in the gym to get a pump. You know,
yeah,
it's
no
very,
joke. Yeah.
it can be motivating. You know, you get kind of an endorphin rush from it.
Yeah, I guess since we're kind of on the supplement guide right now, so do you believe in
whey isolate as far as creatine?
Yeah,
creatine. Your bread and butter products that are actually going to build muscle. Most pre-workouts are kind of just like a shot of nitrous. You know, it's going to kick you through the workout. Some of them nowadays do have a very actual clinical dosage as far as citrulline, beta-alanine, so you're going to get a performance bump from those. Mm-hmm. Just depends.
Yeah,
I would say these global formulas we have, the Super BioFreak is all clinically dosed at the high levels.
I'd say somebody starting out, maybe like caffeine definitely would probably increase your performance level.
Yeah, it's ergogenic aid.
Yeah, so I'd say like a cheap thing you want to starting out.
I mean, a lot of young guys, everybody wants the
crazy thing.
Well, yeah, you want the instant gratification. The world, you know, our phones, it's instant gratification. When I grew up back in my day, like you had like the little Nokia phones with the snake and stuff, and not many people had that and stuff, and there wasn't instant gratification. Like, you know, things took a little bit longer time. Now everybody's really used to that instant gratification, so a pre-workout is, you know, the main product that's sold, you know, across the world.
Yeah.
You take it, you feel it, you go to the gym, you get pump, it's instant gratification. So like a lot of the young guys, it's the first thing they come in, they want to get a pre-workout. It's like, no, wait, let's go to start with the basics, you know, multivitamin.
What's your goal, right? You want to build muscle.
Yeah, your goal is, but there's also too, like just the basics really, and we all kind of know, even if your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, or just be healthier, multivitamin mineral blend, you know, essential fatty acids, you know, amino acids, you know, a protein whey isolate if you're not having any allergies to whey, you know. Otherwise we have plant-based proteins, or basically a protein type, unless you're getting it through whole foods, all your proteins, branched chain amino acids, you know, creatine. Before you even go to like the pre-workout and the stimulants, you know, obviously we are a very stimulant-based society. Like, you know, energy drinks are prevalent. Those weren't very prevalent 20 years ago, you know, and kids didn't eat the acetyl-carnitine. Once you mobilize those fatty acids, those seem to help oxidize those fatty acids in the mitochondria of the cell, transport those.
What kind of ingredients would do that, all that stuff? Like
synephrine, depending on the stimulant, the 1,3-dimethyl, which is, you know, still available, who knows for how long. You have like the 2-amino acyl heptane stimulants. Those are the top of it.
I know that you're a big guy, big believer in like yohimba and HCl.
Yeah, so yohimba and HCl, obviously caffeine synergistically in that combination. I do use quite a bit of that. So I mean, basically the bread and butters. It just depends on what product that person's taking, you know. And then everything with me is like when I create someone's plan, there's no black and white. So it's like I'm going to kind of assess the person and figure out where their tolerance is at, what's worked for them, and utilize the most efficient products. So I don't have like just a standard, this is what we're going to do for this, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well then, anything else for intro workout kind of layout there?
I'm sure there's something we're missing.
Always is, right? Let's transition into post-workout and kind of go through like an ecto and a meso difference for maybe post-workout nutrition, along with maybe supplementation, depending on where you like to put your creatine, stuff like that.
Yeah, like a lot of times, you know, people take creatine after their workout. I just have people take it pre and intra a lot of times because my thought process is, well, it's now in the body post-workout. It's kind of readily there, and you know, if you spiked your insulin, if you've taken like the carbohydrate powders, you know, and taken aminos, so you have the creatine, the aminos, and you know the insulin spike from the carbs, shuttling, pushing all that into the muscle tissue, and trying to basically, you know, create an anabolic environment, recover faster, and then a lot of people, it depends on the person, but it could be a solid food meal after workout. Could be a protein shake, mixed with some type of other carbohydrate. Generally,
I was going to ask you is what do you think about mixing a fructose source or maybe just like a fruit, and also with like a rice-based source or something that's
so cream of rice and berries with protein whey isolate.
Yeah. Or something like that that's more of liver glycogen filling and muscle glycogen together, rather than just like.
It depends on the combo, and generally that would be done like an ectomorph person, because most of my people are going to be training in the evening, and so they've already kind of filled that liver glycogen throughout the day.
Yeah.
If I feel like they're an extreme ectomorph, or they're just one of those people that we got them on a ton of carbohydrates and they're just burning through them. Say like I've had one guy who's 1,100 grams of carbohydrates a day. Yeah, he had fruit pretty much in every meal, because also too, to get that 1,100 grams of carbohydrates in, I use fruit as this basically the simple sugar to help when his blood sugars came back down. He became hungry again, so he could eat more. To get in 4,400 calories from just carbohydrates a day is a lot. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things you have to think about as a coach. When you're devising a plan, you can't just be like, all right, cool, you're gonna eat 6,000 calories of chicken and breast and sweet potatoes a day. Do you know what that looks like? Nobody can really eat that. So that's why we have to use processed foods at that point in time, or cream of rice post-workout, maybe with pineapple in it, and the whey isolate, vanilla whey isolate can be, you can whip together that. I might do that, and so we have the assimilated quick complex carb with the cream of rice, but it's quickly assimilated. I have the pineapple, and I might have to throw in some Ezekiel toast, which is higher fiber. So I kind of would in bro science theory, the carbohydrates would possibly stagger out and be released at different rates, and the fructose from the fruit to refill the liver glycogen, like you're saying. And then it's just all dependent, and a lot of times, it also might be the feedback from the client how satiated they are. So if I have an endomorphic, a heavy set client post workout period, and they're like, I'm starving, I'm not going to feed them a protein shake and a whey isolate and a cream of rice. I'm going to be like, okay, here's some chicken breast and some sweet potato, or something more substantial, to keep them full. And all that depends on basically, when we figure out their macros and we got them moving along and we have them moving in the right direction. Now these are our macros we get to work with. Now we gotta put these into place, the timing, and make it doable for the client, feasible for them to actually accomplish that plan too, and utilizing different foods can keep you more satiated or not, depending, that piece 25 grams of carbohydrates can come in a lot of different shapes, sizes, and forms.
Exactly. It could be one little candy bar, or it could be a full half cup, half 6 ounce, or 4 ounces of sweet potato.
Yeah, or half Pop-Tart.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like nothing,
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if there's any questions so far. Speaking of post-workout, is it more important to keep a positive nitrogen balance or a quick post-workout isolate? You get that? Speaking of post-workout, is it more important to keep a positive nitrogen balance or a quick post-workout isolate?
Well, that would do both. I might be misunderstanding the question. I mean, if you do have a quick
both together would be ideal.
Well, positive nitrogen balance is from protein.
Yeah.
So, a quick post-workout isolate would keep your nitrogen balance positive. They're both important because 24/7 if you have a positive nitrogen balance, you're in repair mode because your body's repairing itself 24/7, 365. Obviously, we're talking about that post-workout. We're trying to create that spike of insulin and protein and branched chain aminos, so you'd want in that post-workout period, if you are looking for that quick hitter, hydrolyzed isolate would be great.
Yeah, and I'd say that most people might think that you can't use many important for a positive nitrogen balance, or is it more important for quick release protein or someone who can't do protein shakes?
Well, you could just use BCAAs at a high dose to keep because they're freeform, they're going to go right in and protect your tissue during that time period, and then they're going to stimulate that mTOR pathway, which increase your protein synthesis rate, and then you have whole food, obviously protein post workout. And if you're eating 90 minutes prior to training, you train for say an hour and a half. And you eat pretty much immediately post. That's a 3-hour window.
What other? Dylan, you also asked thoughts on BCA versus EAAs when it comes to keeping anabolic.
I feel like it's splitting hairs, kind of.
Yeah. What up, Matt? If you're still on here, that's my boy Blue Allen. Oh shit! What else we got? What up, Michelle? Still on here? If there's any more questions, we're kind of wrapping this up with the pre-intra, post-workout stuff. Kind of went through the basis of how we would set up for ourselves or for clients, stuff like that.
I can tell you what I'm doing now for mine.
Yeah, what are you doing now for yours, and what kind of body type do you justify yourself as?
I would consider myself meso-indo, so athletic, but I can, gain body fat relatively easy. Damn it. So I can't just go ape shit crazy.
Yeah.
But so right now I just transitioned from competing to off season. My carbohydrates only came up a very minimal amount in my pre and post workout meals. So my pre-workout meal and my post-workout meal, those meals increased significantly in carbohydrate intake. They were anywhere from 50 to 70 grams pre and post-workout, and those were my only carbohydrates for the day. So anywhere from 100 to 140 grams of carbohydrates a day. The 140 gram days came twice a week on the bigger lifting days. Now, I take in my first meal is no carbohydrates. There's only 15 grams of carbohydrates in my other 3 meals that are not pre or post workout. That's like a slice of toast. That's like a slice of Ezekiel bread, or like 2 Quaker rice cakes, something like that. So pretty much, or 3 ounces of sweet potato. So then my pre-workout meal now is 125 grams of carbs, and my post-workout meal is 125 grams of carbs. I don't utilize intra-workout carbohydrates right now. I am using 20 grams of branched chain amino acids intra-workout. I use the modern BCA. It's like 2.5 to almost 3 scoops actually is what I take. I do take Super BioFreak pre-workout, which does have like 10 grams of citrulline, which is the pump product we were talking about prior. It's got a full dose of the beta-alanine, which beta-alanine buffers lactic acid. So that's the wall you hit when you can't do any more repetitions. That pushes that out for longer so you get more reps in. It does have caffeine and stimulant 2-amino isoheptane, which helps with focus and drive. I do like that product too because I always do a lot of my clients' work after my workout, and it gives me like a nice sustained energy, so I don't have a peak and a crash, And basically, in my pre-workout period, I basically eat 60-70 grams of protein a meal, 125 grams, pre-workout, 125 grams post-workout. As you saw today, that came from sweet potato.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
And then, depending on the day, I'll let myself have a little bit of play. Yeah.
So I guess a good basis for maybe if someone's trying to do it themselves, trying to structure their plan. This is from a carbohydrate standpoint, would be to start maybe around 60% of their carbohydrate value would be around their training, or 60 to 80% would be around their training.
50 to 75, yeah.
Splitting hairs. Yeah, but somewhere around there to keep it around your training. So because you're probably more insulin sensitive, you'd be able to show those carbohydrates.
So you could say let's just say a mesomorphic, athletic, young male weighs, let's say he is he's getting in, he needs 400 grams of carbohydrates is his macros. He's figured this out,
Yeah.
So let's just say he's going to take in 75% of that, or let's just say 60% of that.
Yeah.
So 75 grams pre, 75 grams intra, 75 grams post.
Yeah.
That's 225 grams of carbohydrates. He's got another 175 grams. Generally, a lot of these people are eating every 3 hours, 6 meals a day. The intra workout we don't consider a meal. So pre-workout meal, post-workout meal, we'd consider those. So we have 4 other meals to get in the rest of that 175 grams of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
It's approximately 45 grams a meal.
Yeah, just let it eat.
Yeah, and then so they would take in 40 to 45 grams a meal in those other meals. If they were gaining body fat, what they first should do would be reduce the carbohydrates from the the anytime meals, let's call them, the non-pre.
Instead of just
and
cutting
post-
back their carbs dramatically, they should just
Yeah,
maybe change
keep
it around.
the carbs around the intra-workout time period for fuel, and take the carbs out of the non-period, because you're going to need the carbs when your heart rate is at a higher level. That's training. When you're resting and not as active, you don't need carbs. And Milos Sarchev said, and I liked this analogy, and it made a lot of sense to me. He's like, he's fueling someone for the next 3 hours. That's why he eats meals. Have people eat meals every 3 hours. So in that next 3 hour window, if you create a deficit, you can lose body fat and then create an anabolic environment around your training period to build muscle and recover, and then go back into that
So
slight
it's
deficit.
like a cycling.
Yes, because
during,
you
like daily cycling.
and carbs aren't necessary for protein synthesis. So actually, to build muscle, they're not necessary, but they keep protein from degrading. So they keep protein around longer. So yeah, utilizing them in that time period, and also spike insulin, which we're trying to utilize as an anabolic hormone to build muscle. And the only time we really want to spike insulin is in that time period. Other than that, we're going to be desensitize ourselves to insulin and become type 2 diabetic, basically, and that's the major issue with this country.
Yeah.
We do have products too, like glucose disposal agents.
I was gonna say, yeah, with the different like a
Insulin
one
mimickers.
Yeah, a glucose disposal agent, whether it's alpha lipoic acid or some sorts. You can use
Yeah.
even just the cinnamon, obviously from just your food source, and that would help also with maybe if you're.
I like to take the BioSupport myself from Global Formulas. It's got like the alpha lipoic acid, the chromium polynicotate. It's got the mannose sulfate. It's the Banaba. You have also what else is in there? It's pretty loaded. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that. And who would you recommend that to?
Honestly, those glucose disposal, pretty much almost every American can benefit from glucose disposal agents. Most people, that'll be cause them a lot of health benefits.
I was gonna say the health benefits of maybe like damaging cells or maybe like prolonged life or stuff like that. I've seen like research maybe if the higher dosages of that. I don't know if you.
Because alpha lipoic acid is an antioxidant as well.
Yeah.
And they use it in acetyl-carnitine in combination with alpha lipoic acid to treat diabetic neuropathy. So it helps with that as well. So it's keeping blood sugars, stabilizing the cognitive function of the acetyl-carnitine.
Yeah.
So, but that's the main problem in America actually is generally is blood sugar issues, heart disease as well. And so type 2 diabetes is what, insulin resistance leads to. I pretty much don't see a person that came in that cannot benefit from taking a product like that.
Yeah. I agree.
And especially because our food supply is so carbohydrate heavy. It's so carbohydrate heavy, and we are not as active as we once were. If you follow the food guide pyramid, if you are not an ectomorphic, naturally thin set person, you most likely become overweight, and that's why the bulk majority of America is overweight. It's simple as that.
Yeah. It's too bad. It's too bad the guidelines are not really.
Well, the guidelines are teaching you to eat poorly to put you into bad health.
Yeah.
They're cookie cutter, and I hate to say it, but the nutritional information I was taught in college from my classes is pretty wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't utilize any of it other than the nomenclature and the terminology that I learned.
Yeah.
I don't use any of that stuff in my protocols.
It's sad to say that I'm pretty much done now, and still to this day making programs for clients. It really hasn't been incorporated yet. And I'm not saying anything against going to a university, and if you're going and you're learning and you're using this, and that's totally cool. I'm in the boat with you guys, but at the same time, is application.
Well, who's writing the books?
Yeah.
And it's the big money who's writing the books, and it's the people that are, they're telling you what's good and what's bad for you. Yeah. And so.
But anyways, all right. Well, that's a little bit about pre-intro and post. Is there anything else you want to add, or?
Some guys, some guys will basically I'll have them have a quick, fast assimilating. Depends on the person. Like, so sometimes we might have just way isolate post-workout, wait a little bit, and then eat a solid food meal. It all depends on where the person's at. Like, we're not always taking somebody just and prepping them for a show.
Exactly.
We could be trying to add weight to them, And a lot of times guys when they're trying to gain thin set guys, or guys that are hard gainers. When they're trying to gain weight, they just never get into the echelon of calories that they need to actually gain that weight. They're too worried about counting stuff. And then there's the guys that don't count the stuff, that gain, perpetual amounts of body fat and really just have no benefit as far as muscular gain. I think really what it comes down to is having a plan. If you don't know what you're doing right now,
commit to it.
Yeah, get online. You don't want to do coaching, you want to get coaching, talk to somebody, find a coach. Otherwise, you don't want to do it, get online, find a macros calculator, try to do your best, plug in your macros, break that protein up evenly to 6 times. So if you get 300 grams of protein, that's not going to happen, but let's just use it for easy numbers. Break that up over 6 meals a day, 50 grams of protein. Like we said, utilize 50 to 75% of your carbohydrates in the pre-intra and post-workout time period. Utilize the other 25 to 40% of your carbohydrates outside of those meals, and then calculate where the fats are off your macros. Keep your fats away from your pre and post-workout time period. Write that down on a sheet. Use a MyFitnessPal. If you really want to do this, do it right. Otherwise, everybody likes to complain, but they don't like to put in the work. So put in the work, figure that out, and if you have a plan, you can adjust. If you're gaining body fat, reduce your calories. If you're not gaining enough, increase your calories. Or increase your food volume if you know what you're eating already.
It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in maybe even 2 weeks, or maybe even a month if you're doing it by yourself and you're transitioning things and you're trying. The main thing is to not give up and to just have a plan and commit to it. Because if you are saying you're eating this, your healthy foods, or you have your plan during the week, and on the weekend you're going out and drinking and having a pizza here and there, that's going to change the course of your your weekly calories, right?
Yeah, and the thing is too is a lot of people say I eat healthy. That's cool. I'm glad you eat healthy, but you don't know how much protein, carbs, and fats you're eating a day. Those are the building blocks that are coming in daily to build your body up, that is repairing itself daily, 24/7, 365. So if you only do 4 days a week where you actually hit that properly, in school terms, 4 out of 7, that's a DEF. You failed. Okay? So don't expect the world, You see these people see these people on Instagram, they see them, they're shredded, they're ripped, they do this day in, day out. They're committed to that. So the magnitude of effort that they put in is extremely high. So if you want results, put that effort in. And, that's just the one thing I see a lot of people nowadays. They want the results of the Olympians, but they're not willing to put in the results, to get off the couch.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to be successful in anything, have a plan. If you want to become a millionaire, have a plan. If you want to build a better physique, have a plan. Follow the plan. If the plan's not working, adjust the plan.
You gotta start somewhere, though.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's see if there's any more questions, and if there's not, we'll get off here. All right, we're gonna wrap up. If there's any more questions, hey Jenny, how's it going? Can you send check-ins? Let's see, some serious smart guys. All right, guys, if there's no more questions, we're gonna wrap up here. We also want to give a shout out, thank you to Dan Webb for letting us host our podcast here at Patriot Supplements. Until next time, thanks Matt for being on the AP podcast.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm down here at Patriot in Hayden, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 to 4. Come on in, we got samples, we got pre-workouts, we got protein, whole 9.
Great, all right guys, see you next time, peace.